Hey everybody, this is Information Specialist Eric Stoker, and welcome to our quarterly Self-Advocate Spotlight. Joining me for our spotlight today is my good friend Storee Powell. What made me want to interview her is that she has done a lot of work for people with disabilities by speaking to a wider audience about disabilities, and she's working on an online course through the Center for Persons with Disabilities at Utah State University in Logan for those living with chronic pain conditions. And she has also done a lot of public radio to promote disability awareness. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our interview. Storee, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be interviewed today.
Well, thank you, Eric. I'm really glad to be here, and it's a privilege.
My pleasure. So, my first question for you, Storee, is tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm 32 years old. I live in Smithfield, Utah. I'm a graduate of Utah State University. And I've worked at the Center for Persons with Disabilities for the last 10 years in various capacities. And I'm also autistic. I actually just formally learned that last year, although I'd suspected for a long time. And I also have multiple illnesses and physical disabilities. I have a genetic disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it affects my connective tissues. And I also have a pain disorder called fibromyalgia, and I have an endocrine disorder called mast cell activation syndrome. And I live with a lot of chronic pain and fatigue, and it's definitely challenging. But I also am grateful that I started working at the Center for Persons with Disabilities because it helped me learn before I really started experiencing my own illness that disability isn't shameful and it's a part of life. I'm a proud disabled woman. I'm proud to be autistic, and I have no shame in saying it makes me who I am.
Story is, how did you start learning how to be a self-advocate?
Well, so I'm a journalism graduate from USU, and I'd always been interested in social justice issues, and I didn't know a lot about disability in terms of the language of disability advocacy, but I just learned from all of the people around me. And I did eventually have to quit that position. It was just too physically intense for me. But I was able to come back to a different position that better accommodated my disabilities. And I really do have to say that having disability advocates in my life helped me to the first thing, which I think is hardest, is accepting your own disability. And seeing them do it helped me do it. And the power of that, and not that it necessarily makes like pain easier or the ableism you face in society, but it does give you more self-confidence seeing other people do it. And I knew that I was worthy of it because my friends told me I was. But their example helped me so much. I just had such a desire to help other people because I know that so many people are struggling. And I think when able-bodied people hear that, they think it's our disabilities that make us suffer. But a lot of it is the ableism and inaccessibility of society that makes us suffer in our cultural attitudes about disability. And that's what I wanted to change, because if we can change those are the things that we can make a difference in and mitigate unnecessary suffering. The power of not only ourselves, but as we work together like we are today, those things can make it easier and motivate us to keep doing it, because we don't need to do it alone. That's another thing I've learned. We need to work together, and it works better that way.
Because some of the self-advocates that are going to be watching this aren't going to know who you are, but tell us a little bit about your job a little bit, though.
So my current position, I'm actually the social media specialist at the Center for Persons with Disabilities. I'd say the overall goal of my position is to get out important information to disabled people as well as allies and organizations that work with disabled people. And I take that job very seriously. It's the tool that we communicate with now, and I think that's even more true for a lot of disabled and neurodiverse people, because a lot of times we are more emotionally or physically isolated, and we rely on online tools. And it ranges from highlighting resources available to talking about difficult, important topics in the disability community.
Story is, you told me in an email that you've been a part of the disability field for the past 10 years. How have you helped other people with disabilities during that time?
One of the things that I think we all have our unique gifts, and it's important for us to embrace those, because I think those are the ways we can best contribute to disability advocacy. And the thing that I'm best at is writing. It's how I feel I can communicate the most clearly. Because I'm autistic, a lot of times communicating in other forms, I feel like something's lost in translation and people don't always understand what I'm saying. So writing helps me to be really clear, whether it's writing about my own life story, like learning that I'm autistic at 31 years old, or helping raise the voices of other disabled people. I really think an important part of advocacy is including people at intersections that are left out. And I want to be an ally for them and make sure that they're being included. The other thing I do is whenever I get an opportunity like this to speak to wider audiences, I take it. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I really like interacting with audiences to help educate them, but it's also, as an autistic person, I have a lot of anxiety about it too. I did a session at the USU Diversity and Inclusion Symposium, and I talked about what it's like to live with an invisible disability. There's a lot of stigma with invisible disability. It was scary, but I think maybe I made an impact. And at the very least, when I do these things, I hope that I'm just providing some solidarity for people in similar situations, because you can feel like you're the only one. I think that's one of the things at the moment I'm most passionate about, is making sure that things in the disability community are led by sick, disabled, and neurodiverse people, because we need to determine our own outcomes. We know what we want. We know us best. I know there's a lot of good intentioned allies out there, but sometimes good intentions aren't enough. And we need to make sure that they're hearing our voices, because it's our lives.
What advice would you give to self advocates who are starting their self advocacy journey?
I really think it starts with self acceptance of your own disabilities or neurodiversity or mental illness, chronic conditions, whatever it is, because you can't really help other people if you haven't accepted yourself. And so I want people to learn to be comfortable with permanent disability, permanent, chronic pain, because that's just how it is going to be for a lot of us. We don't wake up and one day our disability magically disappears. I'm autistic for life. That I'm wired that way. So learning to accept yourself is the most powerful tool, because what that does is you are able to look at yourself like you'd look at anybody else and say, I am as good as anybody else. I am worthy of self-advocacy because I'm a person. And I think everything starts from that point. People will think I'm being rude or aggressive when I'm actually just trying to advocate for myself and people like me. So if you start having people tell you that you're getting out of place, you're getting too uptight about things, and you're looking into things too much, blow them off, because you are doing what you need to do to take care of you and your community. And it is not our job as disabled people or disabled advocates to make healthy, able-bodied people comfortable. That's not our job. Their discomfort is their problem. If that's how people want to take it, it's not your concern. Your concern is advocating for yourself and your community to the best that you know how. And, we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes in our advocacy, but we're allowed that because we're humans. And that doesn't mean we're bad. It doesn't mean that we need to stop. We just can take a moment to reevaluate and move on and do better next time.